Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Plymouth Community School Board of Trustees for June 7, 2016. If you'll join me in the pledge, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first item is to set the agenda. Any additions or corrections? No. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
The agenda is set. Are there members of the audience that would like to speak to any agenda items this evening? Yes, ma'am.
Laura Cryer, item 3.3, consider stipend for AP and dual credit teachers.
Thank you. Anybody else? We'll have another chance at the end if something were to change. Section 2, the consent agenda. We have somewhat traditional items here this evening. Are there any items of the consent agenda that a board member would like to have pulled out and consider individually? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second to accept the consent agenda. Before I call for a vote, are there anybody here for the consent agenda that I'm not aware? Nope? Okay. Motion and second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, section 3, business transactions. 3.1, consider textbook fees, K-12. What's that?
I don't think they understood you. There are some people here.
Okay, maybe I should speak more clearly. That's what I was hesitating for. Let me go back. On the consent agenda, I think there's people in the audience that we would want to have introduced. That's a cue. Somebody go.
I have 4. So I'd like to introduce Paige Warman. Paige is and she's coming to us from Ball State, chirp chirp, and 1.5 years of experience from Vigo County School District. Then I have Emma Mans, and she's coming. She's going to be Paige is going to be our 5th grade language arts and social studies teacher. Emma Mans is going to be our mild intervention teacher. She's coming from Argus. She's from Argus, I should say, and she is a Manchester grad, and she's brand new to us, okay, and to teaching. Okay. Then I have Ashley Belden, who is she's from Bethel, has most recently taught at Argus School District. She's coming to Riverside, and I think you have 6 years of experience. Yes. Okay, and then we have Mindy Blosser, who is coming to us from Bremen. Left Bremen after 14 years and went to Switzerland, and is coming back to the area, so she'll be teaching for Riverside as well. IUSP grad. Yep.
Well, welcome to you all. But I want to say something personally about Ashley. You picked a great one. She's a great teacher. Good luck.
That's all we want.
Well, thank you for coming to Plymouth. We're glad you're here, and best of luck to all of you.
Thank you.
I have one to introduce Katie Duran, who's already with us and working in our JAG program. She's going to be going over and having the task of replacing the very big shoes of Susie Clevenger over at the alternative school. So I think she's going to do a great job with the combination of the kids she worked with JAG and just kind of enthusiasm she has for that position.
Welcome. Now, I would only suspect that coming in behind Susie, you're going to hear that a lot. You have big shoes to fill.
I just
My-
can't picture. Oh, sorry.
My advice in that situation, bring your own shoes, lace them up, and make it your own.
That's good advice. Everyone says big shoes anymore. I just see her walking around with big clown shoes. That's awesome. Thank you.
Welcome.
And we have two new teachers here from Webster. We have Shay Cornelius. She is going to be moving into our self-contained special needs classroom. And Shay worked at our school last year as a one-on-one aide with one of our special needs students, so we're glad to have her. And we also have Kelly Statzer, and Kelly comes to us from, she did a leave for Carrie Bear over at Menominee for about 8 weeks, and then she also did Cassie Hart's leave in the special needs classroom over at Menominee. So we're glad to have both of them at Webster.
Well, it's great to see all of you here, and very excited for you to join Plymouth and have a wonderful career, so welcome. Anyone else before this time I am going to move on? Can they leave? No. I would almost recommend it. It's a beautiful evening, but you're welcome to stay. But it's wonderful to meet you all, and certainly you're welcome to leave and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you for coming.
Okay. 3.1, consider textbook fees K-12.
Yes, so before you are a recommendation for fees for this coming year, K through 12. They reflect new math adoption materials that you previously approved, as well as we were able to remove quite a few some fees that were associated with various courses. So present those to you for approval tonight.
Well, we've got the information, you've heard the recommendation, is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
A motion and second to approve the textbook fees as presented. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Item 3.2, consider curriculum content.
Yes, these are a couple lists of, from Plymouth High School and from Lincoln Junior High. They are their lists of novels. So I am asking for your approval for those to be supplemental to their core content you've approved previously.
Let's get it on the table. You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. How does this list come together? Do you know?
Yes, I do, actually.
I figured you did.
Yes. For the most part, it is led by an administrator meeting with department chairs. So for the most part, it is teacher-driven, aligned to the standards, aligned to the units of study.
You know, Todd, one of the things that might be a little confusing out here right now is there used to be, every year there was a different subject matter where we adopted, and now we can adopt at any time. And so over the years, there have been a lot of things taken in and used without really going through the adoption process. So all we're doing today is taking those novels that we couldn't find any evidence of them going through the adoption problem. Some of them may have, but we couldn't find the evidence of it. And we want to make sure that there are things that the board has seen and our community has approved.
Okay, well, that's helpful, because it's different than what I would call.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? We have a motion and a second, correct? I've lost track.
Yes.
Yes, we do. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Move on to item 3.3, consider a stipend for AP and dual credit teachers.
Yes, 2 legislative sessions ago, one of the outcomes of it was that we could pay our teachers who are teaching dual credit classes an amount that could be discussed with the Teachers Association. Doesn't have to be negotiated, it just has to be discussed. We started discussing this very early in this school year, maybe January. I don't remember the exact date, but it was close, and I wasn't here most of the first semester, so I think it was in January. we listened to a lot of good and bad. And the reason this has come up is because now, coming in a couple of years, in order to teach a dual credit class, you are going to have a master's degree and 18 hours of that subject matter. So if you're a math teacher, you have to have 18 hours of math plus a master's degree. I kept hearing they were going to do something different. They were going to pass some other things come this last legislative session, and they did. They said, we think we should also include AP teachers into that list, even though they don't have to have a master's in 18 hours in that subject matter. And the reason they don't is because those students have to pass a test that has been made up by the college professors, where the other dual credits don't. So I think it's a must. Let me give you a statistic that I got from Mrs. Porteous today. There will be 66 graduates wearing the Ivy Tech cords when they graduate Friday night. And that means that they've had at least 15 hours of Ivy Tech dual credits during their junior and senior years. So, and that isn't counting all the other places that we get dual credits for, or the places we get that our kids get 18 AP credit. We don't want to see this go away, so one of the things that we did was we discussed it, and the amount came and said, well, to get the 18 hours, you're going to have to go back to school. If you don't have your master's degree, you're going to have to go back to school and get this. It's going to be costly. And so the amount that I heard the teachers say would be enough to get us to do this would be a stipend of $2,000 a year. And so that is what I'm bringing to you today, is that anybody that gets their, is a dual credit teacher, gets their 18 hours, and has a master's degree would get $2,000 a year for going through that and teaching the dual credit class. Also, the AP, anybody who's teaching an AP class would also get that stipend of $2,000. I think that's one way we can help teachers get a raise, and I think it's also a way we can let students know that when you come to Plymouth, you're going to be able to maybe get as much credit. You might be able to knock off a semester or even a year of credit. So that's what I'm asking for, is $2,000 for people teaching dual credit, having their 18 hours in the subject matter, and having a master's degree, or teaching an AP class.
It's a one-time only?
No, it's every year.
Okay.
As long as they're teaching those classes.
Because I can see if they continue to do this, they'll have to go back and get some more hours, I'm sure.
Probably.
I would so move, get it on the table.
Second.
Or,
Yeah, I will get it on the table first. So we have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion at the board we come back to? So how many would qualify for this now?
there were 26 who would qualify if they had their 18 hours and their master's degree, but there's only about 8 that would get it next year. But eventually, once those people went back to school and got their credits, they would have it.
This bill that was passed, is there any subsidizing from the state to offset that? Be something different.
Funny man.
Yeah.
No, there isn't. But I think it's something we have to do for our students and our teachers.
So we only have 8 teachers now teaching dual
AP,
credit?
no, AP. The other ones won't get that $2,000 until they have their 18 hours. And are you thinking that's different, Laura?
Well, you have dual credit teachers that are right now able to teach dual credit courses because those requirements have not gone into place. So for instance, I'll use myself as an example. I will be teaching Ivy Tech dual credit courses. I have a master's degree, but I don't have the 18 graduate hours.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So there would be about 25 teachers on that list. But in 3 years.
Okay, I'm more confused
Yeah,
when I asked the question.
Okay, let me go back. This last year, the colleges and their accrediting agency said, if you want to continue teaching dual credit after this year, the teachers have to have their master's degree and 18 hours in their subject matter. Well, there was such an uproar at the state level that they said, we're going to give you until 2020.
I'm starting to catch on.
Okay, so Laura is absolutely correct. If somebody is teaching it, they should get that until the state says you don't have your credit anymore. If you don't go back and get your 18 hours or your master's degree.
Let me see if I understand it. So I'll use you as an example. The stipend would apply, but you'd have to work towards the 18 to continue to receive it after that 18 is a requirement in whatever year. 20.
Or convert the class to an AP class, which does not require any extra schooling.
Right. So with that understanding, we have how many?
Right at 25.
Okay, so we're talking about $50,000 or so. Any other questions?
Well, I appreciate you thinking about that particular topic with a stipend. Any way that we can get our teachers some extra money is always, favored by PDA. I want to give you a little bit of background, though, and it might be an issue that we think about a little bit more before we go ahead and put it into place. When the state, back about 2012, changed the collective bargaining rules, one of the things they changed in the contract was that you could not give a teacher an incremental salary increase based just on degrees. Now, you can figure it into the formula, but they still have to be highly effective or effective. But they changed the law. It used to be, I went and got my master's, I got a pay raise. I went and got master's plus 30, got a pay raise. That no longer exists. And so what happened then in the years following is that nobody was going back to get degrees. It was an economic decision. Why should we when we won't be compensated for that? And so then the state started to realize, especially with the Higher Learning Commission now requiring teachers to have a master's plus 18 graduate hours, that nobody was going to go do it. And so they were talking about passing a law, and that would then enable school boards to give a stipend to teachers that were either, again, dual credit based, AP they added, and they did put in there elementary with certain licensing of, I believe it was math and language arts. Well, that last part of elementary came in with a little bit of lobbying by ISTA. ISTA was saying, if you just allow for this stipend for high school teachers, you're going to see probably an income gap between elementary and high school start to develop. And you would see that be predominantly one that would hurt females, because most of our elementary teachers are females. And so using that rationale and argument, the state legislator then did put in there for elementary teachers if they went after certain certification. So I guess, I don't envy the spot that you guys are in, because it is not, like Mr. Tyree said, an item that can be negotiated. It's something that you guys will decide. And the perspective, whatever teachers have, will be based on what you decide. So they'll look at and say, okay, why did the school board decide this? What teachers can get and what teachers can't? What was their rationale behind it? So I haven't seen the exact wording. We have talked about it, like Mr. Tyree said, in discussion. I have not seen the actual on-print wording of what is being proposed. I do want to encourage you as a school board to look at it from as many different angles as possible. Look at it from people who have to go and get additional schooling versus AP teachers who don't. Look at it from, okay, what if we only do this and offer it to high school and we don't give elementary teachers or intermediate teachers or junior high teachers an opportunity to increase their salaries as well with extra degrees. Do we want them to go after extra degrees? You know, those are all questions that are there, and then, of course, you have to look at it from the financial aspect as well. So there's a lot of different circumstances, a lot of different situations that could kind of come into this stipend. Again, I would like to see it in writing on how it is, so that we could discuss. In fact, I thought it was going to come back to discussion again, so we could look at it a little bit more. But again, ultimately, it is your decision on how this wording is going to be and how it's going to be put in place.
So is it necessary to make a decision tonight?
No, we could make the decision on the July meeting. I was trying to make the decision as early in the summer as possible in case teachers wanted to get in
Sure.
a class and get started.
Do you think we'll have additional information, waiting another meeting or so, or what's your thoughts?
Well, I think we need to hear from, I know the elementary teachers really are disappointed that they're not included in this right now. I can only tell you my perspective as a high school teacher. If I was going after extra additional degrees in education, definitely a stipend is warranted. I also, though, have a difficulty justifying how my job's any tougher than anybody else's job. And that's going to be the difficult part of this. How do you reward those teachers that the law is now letting you reward with, and being equitable as best you can? So I don't know if that additional information that you're asking for would come through being able to have teachers come back and discuss it a little bit more, if that would even change what's being proposed. I don't know.
But Laura, if we don't do something, then the kids in the programs are gonna get shortchanged. Is that correct?
How so?
Well, because of the fact that they're not gonna be certified to teach that, because of the criteria that the state is trying to put on us, then they can't, in essence, get the dual credit or the credit for it, can they?
Well, again, I can only answer this on what I would do in the situation. I have no intention of going back to school, but I would convert to AP. And I would still be eligible for the stipend, and our kids would still be eligible for dual credit.
Right.
They wouldn't be able to get it through Ivy Tech. So they have to pass a test, and they have to get, I think, a 3, 4, or 5 on that test. Where with the dual credit with Ivy Tech, they have to pass my course in order to get credit with Ivy Tech. That's a trend we'll just have to wait and see. I tend to think more teachers are going to be moving now towards AP than dual credit with Ivy Tech.
But not all subjects are eligible for AP, correct?
I don't know, that'd be another area to look into.
No, they aren't. There's a limited number.
And I think there's a limited number of what can be dual credit as well through Ivy Tech. You don't have dual credit courses right now for freshmen and sophomores as far as those levels. You do have some freshmen or sophomore, depending on their schedule, that could take dual credit classes. But we don't, it's usually juniors and seniors again, and so you're talking teachers of those levels.
Well, I certainly don't like the concept of teacher A being rewarded and teacher B, C, D, and E, F cannot be rewarded. But on the flip side of that, I don't want to see those kids get shortchanged because we're not meeting the standard.
So I will tell you why I chose to present this is because I know for whether you're going to be an AP teacher or go back to school, it's going to take a while because when you're an AP teacher, you have to create a curriculum and you have to get it okay from the state. It's a lengthy process to go through, probably at least a year. And for people who are going to go back and get their dual credit licensure, it's probably going to take 2 or 3 years. And I thought, we'll be better able to look at our elementary schools once we get a couple of years of this under our belt. And then also look at where we are economically in a couple of years instead of just saying, right now we're going to give everybody a $2,000 stipend. It's not that I haven't, it's not that I didn't think hard and long about dual credit, or the master's degree for elementary teachers. I just thought this one was the most important to get started. So teachers knew if they wanted to go back and get those degrees, that they could get started on it.
This takes effect in 2 years, or is this immediate?
Being able to give stipends, you can give stipends now.
No, I mean, as far as the state saying you have to have this in order to teach this.
I think it's 3 years.
3 years.
Okay.
Originally, it was going to be next year.
That's definitely a catch-22, that's for sure. Thanks to the state, again.
Well, I thank you for your comments. First of all, I'm just speaking for myself, I don't think that consideration of this, we're not gonna, sounds like to me, we're not gonna, well, we have a motion second, we'll see. Whether we do anything this evening or not, in my mind, doesn't preclude us from considering anything else. The description that you provide, or the example that you provide, makes me wonder if there shouldn't be some distinction between a dual credit and AP. Why are those the same? I mean, if it takes 3 years to do, 2 or 3 years to get what you need to do dual credit versus a year of curriculum, maybe they're comparable, I don't know. I just feel like I need some more information. And maybe I misinterpreted, but it just seems like if you can make a determination to do AP as opposed to dual credit, where somebody wants to do dual credit and they're gonna go back, I don't know.
I think it's easier to be successful and do dual credit than it is to be successful in AP. You have to work awfully hard to be.
Well, those are things I'm not a teacher, so I can't appreciate. So I want to appreciate all of those, so.
I'd be curious to know what Ken's perception is, since you deal with it.
I think your perception of it's a tough catch-22 is a really good point. I mean, I think you have this program, and we have students who, 66 kids have gotten at least 15 credit hours. That's a lot of dollars that are staying in parents' pockets. And that's one of the things that, as a school, we've done very well on the last 4 or 5 years. We've really been ahead of that curve. And Mr. Tyree's been pushing that, Mr. Condon's been pushing that. The teachers have done a great job of going out and developing relationships with Ivy Tech and developing courses that align to their curriculum and the standards they want. So we get our kids graduate and have those credits and save on college. And that's a big selling point for the district. So I really think that is something we need to keep and value. At the same time, it does take some extra work. It does take going back to school and earning that degree and getting those extra hours. And so that's an investment that the teachers are making to invest into our students, and there's part of me that feels kind of like you do, that there should be a way to somehow reward them for that investment. When we get into elementary and those pieces, I don't know enough about it to say a lot about that, but I do know the value of the program at the high school, and I do know the value that continuing ed does for our teachers in terms of what they can bring into the classroom and the depth they can go to with our students to provide them a real quality education.
Does the law, when it talks about elementary, what is the certification they have to have? Because my question would be, is if we value that certification, believe that too would help our students, then we need to consider that. I'm not advocating to take any opportunity away from any dual credit or AP teacher. I'm advocating for us to look at the elementary, intermediate, and junior high as well, because they, just like teachers at all levels, work hard every single day, and many of them do go back to get extra degrees, knowing that that will enhance their teaching ability, and they deserve to be compensated for it as well.
And that's where I'm coming. I don't know that this precludes us from doing that.
Right. But
It's a separate issue, really.
well, we know once we go forward with one, it's always hard to catch up. And so let's say we wait a year, 2 years, 3 years. What message are we sending to elementary teachers who are right now thinking about going back to school? We're saying, okay, you're important, but this is our priority, and it may have to be because of financial, our issues here. But my feeling in the discussion is here, when you're saying it doesn't stop us from saying okay to this, my question is then when are we really gonna look at elementary and intermediate and junior high? Are we talking 2 years from now, 5 years from now, when?
I have another question about AP versus dual credit. So, let's say in a dual credit course, all the students in the course who pass will end up with versus AP, a student has to get a 4 or 5
3, 4, 5, yes.
on the test in order to get that credit. And what are the percentage in AP classes that kids get below a 3?
Well, first of all, it varies from subject to subject. You could have someone like Dave Hatcher who has it in the 90%. Well, it is, probably the exception to the rule. Versus, but he also has 90-some students. Versus someone who might only have one section. From the dual credit point of view, for your average kid, that's probably the better choice. Because as a dual credit teacher, and again, for history, is what I have a relationship with ID Tech. I'm required to go to meetings at the beginning of the year. I'm required to submit a curriculum, required to meet with them at least once a year. But frankly, after that, there's not a lot of contact unless we initiate it or we feel there's some need to improve there. We ask the kids towards the due dates. Do you want to keep this grade? And often we'll encourage them if they have a D or less of, hey, you may not want to start college out this way, and you may want to drop the dual credit portion. But in my history classes, that was only a handful of students in each one. Now that's credits with ID Tech. Some transfer to other schools, some do not. It's always based on the individual institution that's there. Where AP tends to be, my understanding, accepted a little bit more even by states or schools outside the state.
I had a copy of it that I must have left at home. We can table this and bring it back in July, and I'll send you a copy of the law.
Now, there are stipulations that address elementary, intermediate, and junior high from the state.
Well, that's one of the things we need to look at. I believe there is for elementary. I would assume that somehow that wording applies to intermediate and junior high, but I'm not familiar enough with their levels to know.
Does it apply to that?
I don't have the law in front of me. I've got it. I must have taken it home. I was working on this stuff last night.
Well, here we are. We have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. We can do one of two things. We can vote, or we can, I don't think I can entertain a motion to table once I have a motion to vote. So we're going to have that pulled back and then have a motion to table. Is that close? Is that close, Jeff? Okay.
Whoever made the motion can withdraw the motion.
Or, if you don't want to, then we'll vote.
Well, it's a catch-22, but I do not want to see those kids being penalized because we're not meeting the criteria. And the sooner we move, the better off we're gonna be. I think you heard what Ken said, and it has been a tremendous selling point. I agree with what Laura says, but what do you do? I mean, I have to support moving in that direction.
Would tabling this until our next meeting necessarily derail anybody's plans to do this, or what's your opinion?
I'm not so sure anyone has started anything based on the idea that they think they're getting a stipend, because we don't know if they are. I think for the elementary teachers, and again, intermediate, junior high, the best thing that they could have is an explanation of if and when their situation will be addressed.
But I guess, Laura, if we pass this or we reject it, is it gonna make any difference?
To whom?
Well, I mean, how soon we gotta know what it's gonna do to middle or elementary or whatever? I mean,
And if we pass it, it's not gonna keep us from addressing that same issue at a future meeting.
That's right.
If we get this started now.
We can come back to it.
Right.
That's right.
We'll just keep moving forward on all issues.
But I got the impression that the state has established some
Deadline.
deadlines and so forth for all levels. We just don't know what they are. Is that correct?
Oh, I think you're talking about the Higher Learning Commission criteria of credentialing, which is in 3 years. That has nothing to do with the state. That's the Higher Learning Commission.
Except they have to be in they can teach it this year, and then next year they have to be in a program working towards their 18 hours in order to get it without being certified.
Let's vote on it.
Let's have a vote.
I'm sorry?
Let's have a go ahead and vote.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Nobody's taking back their motion or second. That's fine. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I will address the elementary. We're not completely out of this yet, Laura. I just have to.
Yeah, I want people to understand that my vote yes was to support the teachers that have to do this at the high school. And I'm still open to supporting the
Yes.
teachers at all the other levels also.
Well, what have we been discussing for some time? What do we collectively, as a board, as a community, as what have you, we all know what we're dealing with in terms of supply of teachers and, we need to look for all strategies. And this is one of many that we're going to consider, is the way I look at it.
I agree.
Is the exact wording on the agenda? I didn't see it when I was looking earlier.
I'm sorry?
Is the exact wording of this proposal on the agenda?
No,
I did not see it earlier.
No, it's not. I guess my understanding was that, this is to consider continuing to move forward. The wording we're going to be provided.
Yeah, when I had said what I wanted them to vote for, that was my intention for the wording. Teachers will be given a $2,000 for a school year for having their master's degree, having 8 hours in their content area, and teaching a dual credit class. And then the wording for the other would be, which is, I said 2 or 3 times, it wasn't on the wording, though, you're right. And the other would be, this stipend would be good for teachers who are teaching an AP class as well.
We have to approve the wording.
So do you want me to put it on next?
Well, doesn't it have to become, I know it's not negotiated, but it's part of the contract.
Yeah. So I'll have the exact wording on the next, and I'll send you guys, and Laura, I'll send you a copy of the law.
Okay. Because it's discussable, do I need to set up a discussion meeting then for this
Sure.
one? Because we don't meet again until August.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. Check with me before you set it up, though, because I am on some vacations.
Good. 3.4, consider Blueberry Festival agreement.
This is the same agreement that we've signed with the Blueberry Festival for many years. Basically for the groups that are involved in the parking at the Blueberry Festival. It's a great money maker. So I would recommend that you approve it.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the Blueberry Festival agreement. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You've been very patient, thank you. 3.5, consider school board appointment to the library board. I'm assuming that's why you're here.
That's why I'm here. No, I loved all the other stuff. I had no idea what you were talking about.
Ms. Reinhold, would you like to make your recommendation?
My recommendation is for Judy Harness to be reappointed to the library board. This would be her first full term. She just did the last year as to complete Eleanor Danielson's job. So, she's a good one. Judy
So
is a
moved.
good one.
So moved.
Second.
Judy does a good job.
Yep, she
I
does.
agree.
We have motion and second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
There you go, motion carries.
All right, Susie.
Bye, Susie.
Thank you.
Item 3.6, replacement policy, second reading.
This is a second reading for two policies. One is the criminal behavior policy required by state law. As I mentioned last meeting, cooperative group got together to form that policy, and so you see some movements throughout the county. Second one is a replacement second reading for internal controls, just some corrected financial amounts for losses and things like that.
You've heard the recommendations. Is there a motion on the policies on second reading?
So moved. Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 3.7, consider permission to advertise for RFP for workers' comp, property, and casualty insurance.
Yes, Mr. Nguyen reviewed our proposal and our advertisement, and although legally, when it's for services rendered, you do not have to do an advertisement, but we feel it's in our best interest to advertise and get requests for proposals for all of our insurances. Just every occasionally to shop around a little bit, see what's out there.
And we'll get these, I noticed, when will we get these?
The deadline for the companies to turn them into us is July 22nd. Now, we will probably take a little bit of time to review, as we will be, August is going to be a little hectic with a lot of hires and those sorts of things. So it might be September or the October.
So this will be effective for 17?
Yes, it'd be
So
effective
we'll
for
have that for
January.
budget season to take that into consideration.
Hopefully, I don't know.
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
Okay.
I have to have the budget to you August 1st. So that's gonna be,
Probably not, but I
Probably
mean, at
not.
least we could, anyway, I got it.
yeah.
So right now, we're just permission to advertise, is what we're asking for, what's being requested. So that would be the motion that I would entertain.
Second.
Motion second to consider permission to advertise. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 3.8, addition to the K-12 handbook.
Yes, Mr. Olson, here just to follow up to his presentation last time, the handbook was in addition, he said would be forthcoming.
Yeah, we had talked before about our tier system with in terms of the computers, the levels of permissions that students have for access. So Allie Holland is actually the person who kind of heads that up, and she can't be here tonight, unfortunately. But Allie went back, did some surveys with teachers and students, and we've done some tweaking to the plan because of those surveys and the responses that we got from teachers and students. So instead of 4 tiers next year, or 5 tiers, because there's a tier 0, they'll go tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, and then tier 3. Students didn't see a difference between tier 3 and tier 4, so they saw no reason to do the extra work and the extra learning. So we knocked that out. The other big change came from the teachers. Everyone's going to start at tier 1, which basically is you have access to programs that the school has purchased. So they can have access to Canvas to get into their school classes. They can get access to anything in the Google Suite, things like that. And then, after they take a test, kind of demonstrate that they've learned some things about digital responsibility, they'll move up to tier 2, which gives them a little broader field from which they can draw things. And then finally, tier 3 gives them a lot more access to things that they would want to have access to that aren't necessarily always going to be related to school, like ESPN, things like that. And there's a test to go from tier 1 to tier 2, and then tier 2 to tier 3. And it's leveled based on their grade level, so younger kids don't have to score as proficient as the older kids at high school. And then also there's a tic-tac-toe system where they pick activities to go from level 2 to level 3. That's the basic changes.
Okay. ESPN did not have academic benefit. I gotta take
Saber,
my-
I think some sabermetrics in baseball can be utilized easily.
A lot of math there.
A lot of math there.
You've heard the explanation and the recommendations or motion.
So,
Pardon me, just
I'm sorry?
information piece, just information wise, it's tied to the.
Oh, I thought we were approving this.
No, with the handbook, we've always just.
Okay.
It's been.
Like I said, this is an information piece, I appreciate it. I apologize. Thank you. 3.9, consider the crossing agreement.
So this is a continuation of our agreement with the crossing. It's a 2-year agreement, very similar terms to what we had before as far as how that works. And tonight for consideration and approval.
So it's a renewal without any changes?
Simplified language, but conceptually, no changes.
And no issues with the arrangement with the crossing?
Things are going well. Things are going well.
How many students participated in that?
We maintain a minimum of 15 students. That's our minimum and maximum. If we go over that, then as the agreement states, there's additional fees tied to that. We've got hit a couple points where that maybe dipped a few students. As soon as that happens, we're the high school, in conjunction with the crossing, are targeting students who we identify as fitting the criteria. They've really got pretty good at that and are seeing some success from students with them as well. So, our meeting recently, Mr. Wilson can update me if I'm off, there were 5 students graduating
It's
this
5 or
year.
6, I think.
I know there's one still kind of floating, trying to wrap up something here in the next couple of days, but, so 5 or 6 kids who previously were not intending to graduate high school, graduating high school. That's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
You've heard the recommendations.
So move.
Second.
Motion in 2 seconds. Any other questions? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. 3.1, project, or 3.10, project update.
All right, well, they finally started working on this project again. As I told you the last meeting, we found out that there was a water line running in underneath exactly where the footers were going to be. So we had to wait a couple of weeks until the parts came in, then they rerouted the footers, or the pipe, water pipe, and then they came in and put in the forms and laid the footers. Smoothed out the ground, and as you can see, the footers are well below where the ground around it is. So we knew that, but it just really accentuates it when you see it like it is right now. So we're going to have to do a lot of work on getting that water to run off. And the trusses came in this week. They're going to sit there for a while before they start going up. And the estimated finish date would be November 1st. We lost a month on that project because of that water line. The press box went up today. That will have a lot that has to be done inside of it. We'll have to do electric, heating and air conditioning, the system for announcing will go in there. This system that runs the clock and scoreboard will still have to go in there. So there's still quite a bit of work that has to be done inside of it. But having it there allows us to do that work. Dave estimates that they will finish working on the press box itself. But Southern Bleachers Company will finish at the end of this week. And then there'll be other companies that'll come in and do the things that they're supposed to do in there. The bleachers are almost done. There were a couple of steps that didn't come in correctly, and so they're having to replace them. It's in pretty good shape. Once that happens, they will pour concrete underneath the walking lane, because we'll be using the lane underneath of the bleachers to get from one side to the other. The lights are already up in there, so we can see what it's gonna look like. The bleacher jersey that will cover the backside will not come in until a little closer to the start of the season. The buildings, there's the concession stand, the entrance gate, and the restrooms. As you can tell, those have already gotten that first course and block. They're getting ready to do the finishes so that they can put up the second and finished course of block on top of that. The roof trusses are here. And so next week, we should see that other block and the roof trusses going up. We're still a little bit ahead of schedule on the football area over there, so we're in good shape. That's all I have.
Question? Any questions?
Looking nice, looking nice.
Thanks, Ian. Well, you're still on superintendent remarks, section
Okay.
4.
All right. 4.1. Nothing's coming up.
I don't have anything.
Robin?
Scroll up. It's kind of tucked away.
Oh, there we go.
I see it. Scroll down on the right-hand side.
Oh, okay. 4.1, commitment to students. Once again, U.S. News and World Report named Plymouth High School as the 15th best high school in the state of Indiana. Plymouth and Munster were the only two high schools to receive this honor in northern Indiana. 4.2, caring. Our teachers were honored to another great school year at the Teacher Appreciation Banquet. Several weeks ago, 9 retiring teachers were honored for their service as teachers as well. High expectations. 12 senior students were honored as they were inducted into the high school's Academic Hall of Fame. Each department was permitted to name the student who had the top GPA and met other stringent criteria by that department. Teamwork. Plymouth High School and the PHS Alumni Association recently named Sam Schlosser as this year's Distinguished Alumni recipient for 2016. Mr. Schlosser will be receiving this award at the upcoming annual Alumni Association banquet. 4.5, integrity. At the annual National Honor Society induction, 4 teachers were honored as Outstanding Teachers of the Year. The 4 semifinalists were Lindsay Moore, John Barron, Joshua Martin, and Ryan Rust. This year's award, as chosen by the members of NHS, was Lindsay Moore. 4.6, enjoyment. Washington Discovery Academy was recently named a demonstration site by the New Tech Network. WDA is the first and only elementary in the world to receive this honor. WDA will be visited by elementary schools both nationally and internationally wishing to join the New Tech Network next year. WDA receives a financial stipend each time they are visited, and I might say that they can turn down visits or have them come at a better time than others, so we don't have people prancing through the school. I think this year our groups had maybe 4 or 5 different groups come in.
That's great.
Our next meeting is the 2nd Tuesday in July because of the 4th of July. And so we'll meet in the same place.
But our next gathering will be Friday, okay?
Our next gathering will be, be at 7 o'clock on Friday night, or if you'll meet down East End before graduation. And wear your patience because this is a big class.
It's gonna be hot, too.
Yes.
5.1, audience, thank you for coming and sticking it out. Any other comments or questions? Thank you for being here. Anything else for the board? Andy, Brooke, you good? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? See you all Friday.